Good morning, members of the press. It has been a long year, a very long and short and a troublesome year that we are facing, 2020 that is. I think this is also maybe the second time that we convene the press here at the Parliament office of the LPM. Now today we are not going to be long. I merely want to brief you about what is happening with the supposed opening or reopening of the Parliament tomorrow and some plans to postpone the elections, the November 2020 elections, plus also some plans to bring in the only motion, the state of emergency on Tuesday, and thereafter to close Parliament and then to afford the MPs to be on taxpayers' money for a long holiday, whereas the rest of the people are working like you. So on the 2nd of September, which was a Wednesday, LPM received a letter from Professor Peter Hishitevi-Kachavivi, the Speaker of the National Assembly, wherein he basically reminded us about the seating arrangements in the chamber with the commencements of the second session of the 7th Parliament. Now, this letter does not contain any substantive issue as far as the order paper or the agenda of Parliament must be on Tuesday, tomorrow, on the 8th of September, going forward. Now, the letter basically only mentions the seating arrangement. Now, I'm surprised after so many years that the Speaker of the Parliament, the whole Speaker, must write to the chief whips of all political parties only to tell us about one item, which is how to sit in the Parliament. I thought by now, the Prime Minister and any other government executive ought to bring to Parliament substantive issues. For example, what are we going to do going forward? We know that there is COVID. Now, any economic recovery plan of COVID, after COVID, I thought is what the Speaker of Parliament would be interested in to discuss tomorrow. But unfortunately, the Speaker only sends us a letter that says he's only interested in the seating arrangements. Now, where must I sit or others sit? Bring in only 50% of your members. The Parliament has been reduced to such a level. There is nothing intellectual about this letter. It does not also talk to the moral leadership that we ought to provide to the whole country as members of Parliament. So there are no critical issues. It seems to me the Prime Minister, who is the leader of the government business in Parliament, does not have any agenda to put forth to the members of Parliament to discuss. I thought by now we must seriously, as a country, look at the economic recovery plan of Namibia. And that seems not to be the case, because there is no agenda. There is no order paper. We don't know tomorrow, maybe 2 o'clock, we will see what should be discussed. But now, whilst we are at that point, we are also informed by the close sources to the executive that actually the plan tomorrow is to table or to talk about the new state of emergency that will come for the next 6 months in the country. But now this time they want to go further. They want the Parliament to be closed for the remainder of the year. That there should be no item being discussed except what is being brought forth, the new state of emergency. Now, we see some rotten apples there. The idea is because SWAPO has been informed by their own intelligence that when it comes to the November 2020 elections, it will be very difficult especially to make an inroad in Erongo region, while first Swako, it will be very difficult to make an inroad in Thomas region, where we are now. The same with Karas, Hartak, Omaheke, and Kunene South, or the whole Kunene in its totality. So the plan is to postpone the elections. That's why I think ECN has been also lackluster. Perhaps Teo Munjoro will tell us more. But the idea is to postpone the elections. I think it's allowed in the law, three months, maybe December, January, February, or March next year. So that is the idea that they want to do, to postpone the elections so that they go and prepare themselves very well. And we are saying, look, don't do these things in secrecy. ECN must call a stakeholders meeting and inform all political parties and all role players and stakeholders of what is going to happen with these November elections. That's why they are lackluster. We haven't seen them advertising the registrations even aggressively in the newspapers or in the television and so on. They have never been, because there is a plan that is being hatched to postpone that. Now, the issue of the parliament, I've noticed some political parties here represented in parliament are also saying, let us not sit, let's not have parliament, let's open and let's not come back for sittings. Now, it's going to be very hypocritical for elected members of parliament to take such a stance. Why? Because I'm just informed that the school reopening did not materialize today. Because I think they realized, I read one newspaper, that a certain school, a certain number of students got infections. Now, the issue is that how can members of parliament that are getting paid by taxpayers' money, and we have been, for the past 3 months, some members of parliament have been virtually going underground, perhaps being at their farms, etc. Now, how do we postpone, whereas kids were supposed to go to school? How do you then justify? Because for a kid, a grade 1, grade 6, grade 7, they're going to school, but fully grown men and women are saying COVID is so dangerous, let's not go to parliament. I find that very hypocritical. And that most of the politicians in this country have been, they got used to relaxing, being at home and getting paid. And we are saying that one shouldn't be allowed. They are government workers going to work. You are also here doing your duty. Now, what's so special about you and me or others? We are all human beings. We are all breathing the same air. We buy same food from ShopRite or Pick and Pay or Clicks, maybe. What is so special about being a member of parliament? Now, I know majority of the guys from SWAPO are perhaps over 60, and that might be the cause of being scared to come to parliament. But we are not on holiday. Professor Peter Kachavivi must provide the agenda. He was supposed to meet us already as a speaker with all the party chief whips so that we discuss what is the way forward. But now he writes to us some letter, a whole professor with his PhD, writing a letter that says, you are going to sit here tomorrow, you are going to sit there. I find this letter, it's insulting, getting such a letter from a professor who ought to know better. It's very much insulting to the extent that we must maybe question his PhD, who wrote it for him. Because I understand somebody wrote it for him. But we will pursue that one inside the chambers. Now, and that is a problem that we have in Namibia. People seem to have forgotten about substantive issues. There is going to be an agricultural conference that will come up, maybe virtually. But what is our plan? And LPM wrote a document beyond COVID-19, how to resurrect the economy. And those are productive things that we ought to be busy ourselves with. So basically, this state of the emergency, even before it comes or is going to be extended, we ought to sit down as stakeholders and to look at what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats that we can find within the new state of emergency that is going to come. And those are the things that we ought to discuss. Rather than to come, use only your Minister of Justice, them, they come, read a statement there, use your 2/3 or what, impose it, and then you run away. But the deeper thing is that everybody during this time, these issues are not supposed to be politicized. We are supposed to be jointly be together as stakeholders and to look at what are the practical solutions, because our economy is now bleeding. Small and medium enterprises are bleeding. The tourism sector is literally gone. We traveled to Kunene, was it 2 months ago? I don't know how many of you have been to Sesfontein, that part of the world. And you could see the big establishments are closed. People are literally on the street. And it's going to be very difficult how to revive our economy. Looking at that, we are sandwiched by Angola this side, South Africa this side, two strong economies. And if they are also struggling, how are we going to revamp ourselves? So that's why I'm saying ECN must come back to us and tell us whether they want to postpone the elections from November, maybe for extra 3 months. And that they must tell us, if not, how that is going to be done. Because surely it must come to Parliament, it must come to all the stakeholders, meaning the political parties that have got interest in this matter, needs to be consulted, and that we need to discuss an economic plan, recovery plan for Namibia beyond COVID-19, so that these processes are inclusive and nobody will be left out, like the president always claimed that he likes leaving out LPM. I hope he leaves out the defense minister when we discuss these things. And that the reopening of the schools, I understand it has been postponed, but I think the preparedness by the ministry is very shaky, because I don't know why they always involve politics. For example, the Teachers Union of Namibia is always left out, and they always have good plans, good suggestions, good proposals. Even the LPM Student and Youth Command is also being left out. They only get stuck with the old nuns or guys that don't even have any vision, who themselves don't even have a concrete plan to offer to this country. So I think with regards to the secondary schools, the primary school, I think it must move beyond the minister, is it the executive director, Steenkamp and Nantu, which advice one must always caution, because it has never been genuine. It must move beyond that. I think it's time that they involve UNICEF, for example, and some of the UN agencies to assist them in terms of planning, because it's going to be a disaster. Some people are saying let's rather close the school system, because now it's what? It's now October and November. So why do we need to reopen? That's what some members of the community are feeling. But that matter needs at least a broader scope. Community activists, researchers, educationalists from UNAM, NAS to come back and to advise the ministry properly, maybe from the UN, and then they could learn from other countries what they are doing. So that, because I think, and I suspect that this COVID-19 will be around maybe for the next 3 years aggressively. So next year we will be faced with a similar problem. And the NAST and UNAM seems not also to have a concrete plan how to deal with this matter. The online learning is a disaster. It has exposed the deep levels, the deep gap of inequality, unemployment, poverty that exists in our country. It has exposed the gap between rural and urban poverty, and more so, the poverty levels between women and men and the youth. So, in a nutshell, I would have wanted the President and the Prime Minister and the government to call a meeting that will look at what are the strategies beyond COVID-19 plan, so that we come up with a viable plan. But as it matters, key sectors are being left out, even to be consulted. We wrote a letter maybe 2-3 months ago to the President. Until today, he only sent one minister to come to talk to us to say, now if the President gives you time and listen to you, are you not going to go on? We said, no, we have researchers, economists, agriculturalists that will come with us and give technical input. But the President, I think, got scared, or simply he realized maybe his team that he will bring will not have intellectual and moral fortitude to deal with us. So he never responded to the letter. But whenever he talks, he always lies to the press. I consult everybody. We are all Namibians. That is fake. And even the comments that you see, the desperate comments that were made by the defense minister, was uncalled for. The defense minister does not know that the world has changed since the Cold War era, to the extent that we have now UN conventions on genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Whereas he talks here with his nice white convertible car, UN will come and grab him and take him over, because what he's busy doing is he's targeting on a military parade. I think it was 7th of last month. Was it last month? In Caribbean. Whereas you are now trying to speak to the new graduates, recruits, the soldiers now. A defense minister goes and talks about white people. Now, I regard that as hate crimes. And hate crimes normally emanate into crimes against humanity. If the defense minister maybe lost out on a tender or business idea with the white person, he must deal with that at that level. Because you can't go take a platform and identify a specific community in the country and say it's them responsible for white monopoly capital, whereas the ruling party was there for 30 years. And we know there are 2 ministers in jail. I don't know which Afrikaner, apart from maybe the declared lawyer that is being mentioned. These guys, others are from the other countries. So I'm saying is that let's not threaten our democracy. Let's not identify a certain section of the community and give them terrible. Those are the, when 1990, 91, I remember the former President Sam Nujoma said, let's use the hammer to hit the Germans on the head like snakes. Those are statements that we don't need in 2020 when we are faced with the coronavirus. I don't know why they call it the novel coronavirus, but we must deal with the novel coronavirus first. And then the remainder of us can kill ourselves over a piece of land or a tender later on. And thanks for listening to us. And then if you have a question or 1 or 2, then we can take it.
Good morning, my name is Shalida Peterson. I'm from Eagle FM. Now we know before the Parliament went on recess, there were letters written to the Office of the Speaker in regards to the commotion that happened. What happened? Was there any response from the Speaker? Yes, thank you very much. And sorry, as well with the standing committees, how far did you get with that? I know Elton also had a big issue regarding the standing committees.
Yeah. Now, thanks for those 2 questions, especially the one on the standing committees. I just forgot to mention it now. It's very critical. Now, let me start with the standing committee one. Before the closure of the last session of Parliament, we convened a meeting with Professor Peter Kachavivi and all the political parties. We said, look, there are supposed to be 8 standing committees, and these committees ought to go research or receive reports from parastatals and TAPL and so on. But the professor failed dismally. We went to consult our lawyer, especially us, LPM and PDM. The Elise Ambula gave them, the professor, a letter. Now I saw, I don't know, I still have to follow up with the people. I saw my name in certain committee. I said, no, we did not agree on the formation of the standing committees because SWAPO wants to be the chairpersons and the deputy chairpersons of all the committees. Not that we have a problem with them using their 2/3 majority, but the problem is the sort of people that they were proposing. Some headless chickens were proposed as chairpersons of this and that committee. Some who don't even have any interest as long as they are SWAPO. And that is the issue that we have. So that issue is, as far as we are concerned, LPM is still unresolved. And Professor failed because these committees were supposed to be already formed last semester or the last session of the Parliament sitting. So we are here, and I think we might not find a common ground because there are those that have serious problems. They think that if they are chairing committees, that maybe that's how they can get tenders and things, especially SWAPO, which I don't understand. They think if you are a chairperson of, let's say, natural resources or information communication technology, that maybe somehow through the system down you can benefit something. And even in terms of salary, it's not even it's just a title that you get. Your salary remains at the ordinary parliament level. So I don't know why people with no capacity are fighting for this. One of them is Mandela Kabere. Mandela, I don't know what tertiary qualification he has, even to want to contest for foreign relations or something that deals with foreign affairs. No capacity. At NYC, he couldn't even revive or no substantive youth policy came up. But yet, he's just interested in positions, just like his father. You see, the father, National Council, he was crying last time. Margaret Mensah wants to be the chairperson. He cried, he was given something, Ambassador Botswana. Now, the son is again saying position syndrome. It's not the positions. People don't understand. It's the content and what you bring to the table. That must be the one that is counting. You can't have one family empowering themselves through positions as if they are the only human beings in that political party. So that one is outstanding. Professor Kachavivi failed dismally, and I understand a certain faction wants to remove him also as the Speaker of Parliament and to bring in John Motora. That's what I'm hearing. So maybe their factions will start to fight to get rid, because apparently Professor Kachavivi can't contain LPM. 4 people. How can a whole professor with 63 members fail to control 4 people? And why? Because you must provide intellectual and moral fortitude and leadership. The other one, the commotion in Parliament. Of course, parliaments always will have commotions. The issue here is members of Parliament enjoy certain immunities and privileges that are there. So what professor, because he always listened to the wrong side of the advice. You see, and I think some newspapers got it wrong. The last time when we had a commotion, I told the professor, because the whole thing of Semnyuma and liar thing actually was perpetrated by Netumbo. You must first you must press and speak on the mic. Then only is it on record. Now Netumbo, maybe due to old age, wanted us to be embarrassed, or she tried some funny business. And we told her off. And I told the speaker, listen to your legal advisor, because the guys that are always sit in front there, one is always a legal advisor. I said, I was not, nobody was on record. So just ignore. So he thought he would be clever. The next day he came to read things, but we were also ticked off that they wanted to remove, demand apologies from us and to remove us illegally. So we again went to our lawyer. So he received the letter 12 o'clock before the parliament opened, and then I think he realized, because ours was to take him to High Court for the interpretation of some of the rules and so on. So that case is now forgotten. He made some threats there, if you do it next time, what, but it's always will depend on the context and the substance. Nobody, even if you are a speaker or you have a 2/3 majority, has a right to demand this party or this person must be kicked out. I heard rumors. They were crying around, talking around that. Yeah, Honourable Henny Seibeb must be removed from parliament. Let's do everything. They must not come back to parliament. Those are just wishful dreams. It will never happen as long as LPM is there, and we are going to go from 4 seats to how many seats? We'll be there until biology takes us out. But we'll be there. We'll represent our cause unashamedly. We will be very strong, and we have come up with nice research documents. That's why actually we want Parliament to remain until November, because we want to table few motions, 3 of them, one on COVID, one on urban land crisis that we have, and one on agricultural revolution. Those are the 3 motions that we want to table. Very strong. Once we table those motions, even Swabo will not have any chance but just to agree with us. Maybe only Utoni Nuyema will disagree, but the rest will agree, because the scientific research will be so convincing, and it will be very difficult to reject good proposals that will be coming from us. That's why. Now I see some political parties are saying, let's not sit, let's not convene, let's postpone parliament. Maybe their members must remove those members that are talking like that and put in serious people that will come for debate. How do you get elected by the people and say, let me go on holiday? Now 6-month holiday, and it's unfair to the taxpayers. We must work. We want to push forth our motions. Even if we are 20, we want to work. This thing of using COVID to not to come to work. People are sacrificing. They are the frontline workers. They are working. Direct contact with COVID patients. But us, just being at home, some of them are doing. I've been coming here to this office. Most of political parties' offices here are closed. Our head office, if you go there, there is vibrancy. We are working, we are interested, we have passion. So that thing of the speaker, it's done there. We are fully fledged members of parliament. We will be there making noise. If we are provoked to a certain extent, we will not apologize. It's only that fighting is prohibited in parliament. But it will have been interesting. I will have asked Henny Seibeb to train me to beat even some of them. But that's not allowed. Violence is not allowed. We will use our brains and pens to influence the people. That must be our key. Thanks. Go then.
Very much satisfied.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
We don't have cool drinks. We don't have